Hey, it's Darren Johnson. If you remember this template we made early on, it has all of the elements that a typical newspaper page might have. The only thing I would have added is now you can use your black arrow and select multiple areas all at once. And then, it takes a little practice, but then you can start to move them down a little. I would have added a date line up here. So let's do that really quick. Click off, click the text box, and let's put some little elements up here. That would be a date line and maybe like, the edition number. So this is like issue, let's see, volume 1, issue 1. And of course you have to pick a font that makes sense. Now in this case, I mentioned before, you probably don't want more than 3 fonts on a page. That's just good design. We already have our body font, our headline font, which is also the same as our subhead and pull quote font. The masthead doesn't really count as a font. It's just like, usually it's an historic element. Maybe your paper was started in 1952 or something, or maybe it's a brand new paper. But usually it's just considered a decorative piece and not really a font. In fact, a lot of people make it in some other program like Illustrator or Photoshop, and then they import the image. They import it as an image as opposed to it being a font. I like putting a font in the masthead because then you have a little bit of control over it. Like, let's say you're coming out with a special issue and you want to make this a little tighter and maybe put something over here, like a little, an anniversary cartoon or something. Hey, it's our 10th anniversary. You could put the little cartoon over there, and then you could tighten it up a little. But if it were a design element, it would be a little bit harder to fix. Also, it prints slightly better, I've noticed, if you use a font as opposed to creating an image that is a word-based and importing it. It prints a little better if it's on the page that way. So, and there's so many fonts in the world now that you could definitely find one that looks newspaper-ish for your banner. Anyway, 3 fonts on a page. So we have 2 fonts. I'm not counting the masthead. So now we're going to want to pick maybe a 3rd font that we use for certain standalone elements. This could be a font that we use for this little banner up here, but it could also be the same font that we use for the page numbers and things like that. So like little titlings and such you might have. So here's the 3rd font that you're going to pick. I forget what the name of the font is I use for that 3rd font. Let's see. It's probably just like, let's see. It's just Arial Narrow. All right, so Arial Narrow is a font. It's a pretty plain font. It doesn't get in the way. It doesn't look too... here's another example, Century Gothic. So, you want to pick one. Century Gothic is one I picked. So you're going to want to pick one that... These are both sans serif fonts. If you remember, sans serif means they don't have the flourishes on them. Arial or Century Gothic. I think I will. Let me go with the Century Gothic. How about that? We already have Century Schoolbook going, and we have Franklin Gothic going, so we're kind of in that ballpark anyway. No, I think I'll go with the Arial instead. Let's go with something a little here. And Arial gives you a bunch of choices. There's Arial Black and Arial Bold. Arial Black is like super bold, and Arial Bold is just normal bold. Go with that. So volume 1, issue 1, pick a size, I don't know, 14. If 14 looks too big but 12 is too small, you could always just type in your number, 13. Type it in. All right, so we have 1 box. And you'll get used to adjusting boxes between elements so that they're the same area. So volume 1, issue 1. And then you can duplicate this, copy paste it or something. There is a duplicate command, but I forget what the keystrokes are on it. I have it set up for Command D, but I forget what the original keystrokes are. Now you might want to have some kind of motto along the middle. Or it could just be anything. The official student paper. I didn't put newspaper because the word news is already up there. Of XYZ school. And you can see it's outside the box. You can stretch your box until it works. And the official student paper of XYZ school. Of course, because this is in the center, you want to go down to paragraph. And if this isn't showing up, you can go over here and get your characters and get your whole toolbar showing up over there. But paragraph, center it. Hit center. Now it's in the center of the page. So volume 1, issue 1, the official student paper of XYZ school. And this might look small in this view, but then you can just go to actual size and see what it looks like. And that doesn't look too small. It's 13 points. 13 points isn't too bad. Now, if you're unclear whether you centered it or not, just these little guides start to pop up, and it'll tell you if you're centered on the page or not. Sometimes you have to zoom out to for it to show you. There it is, that little pink line. This over here you see is just a page error. Sometimes when you zoom in and out, it doesn't want to do it. But see, it's back to normal now. That won't print that way. All right, and let's do this again. Bring this over here. And make sure it's lined up. Now, because this is on the right side of the page, you want it to be flush right. And you can put the date. So all one font. Sometimes you might want an element like, I'm going to move this down just a little bit more. You don't want your text to bump too much, but let's grab everything and make sure you have everything grabbed. And if you're going to, if you feel like this layout is going to be something that you want to keep together, there is a command called group. Object group, and if you hit object group and you happen to click off of it and you click back on it, it selects everything. So now everything is grouped together. So it's good to use grouping for if you want to keep all your stuff together and maybe use it again down the road, you can group everything. You could always ungroup if you don't like that. I think we need one more design element here. So I'm going to put a line. And a line is a good thing. You can see over here as the line. A line is a good design element to kind of separate out things. And there's a line, and you could make it a little bigger. You can make it a different color. I think we've been using a bluish color. You can make it that blue if you want. Make it a little bit bigger. Look at that. It's not too bad. So added a design element to it. You might not like, when you're working on your masthead or your banner or whatever you want to call it, you might not like that. See how this Y is kind of touching the bottom of the line? It's kind of a hanging letter. You might want to fix that and make it a little bigger. If you find that your text in your box is not centered, you can go and right click on it and text frame options, and you can work on what's called the inset right over here. And the inset, that allows you, and if you click this, it makes all the insets. That allows the text to, let's see what happens if we keep doing it. It won't show up until we actually do it. All right, let's say we made an inset of, that's too much, 0.375, 3.25. Hit OK, and now look what it did. I don't like that, but it made more. Inset is this little area between the text and the box, so, and the text. So you have this little, like, it gave you more of an area, and that's called an inset, and you find that under right clicking and text options. I'm going to hit Command Z or Control Z if you're on a PC. Whenever you make a mistake, Control Z or Command Z, depending on what kind of computer you're on. So use the plain Arial black font or Arial font up here. I'm going to ungroup just so we can play with the elements a little bit more. Object ungroup. Now they're ungrouped, and now we can play with them individually again. And if we zoom out, you can start to see the page coming together. Remember this font, you'll probably use it for your page numbers, and not that you would put a page number on page 1. And we'll add multiple pages in the future. But remember what this font is. Again, you probably don't want like 3 or 4 fonts total for the whole publication. Now, things that are design elements don't count as fonts, like ads. Ads, you could use crazy fonts if you want, or your banner. But typically, you don't want to have too many fonts. All right, one thing I wanted to show you, and this is ultimately very important. It's probably one of the most important things you can do in this program anyway. I'm going to move this down just slightly. So a lot of it is eyeballing, like, hey, where does, you don't want things crammed too much together. White space can be your friend. All right, here we go. All right, so, okay, here's something that's missing too. Well, we'll work on jump when we add more pages, but we're going to want to add a little line down here that says, like, read more on page 2 or whatever page it's jumping to, because the text is overflowing. One thing we're going to want to work on, and I'll show you, I came up with these after much study and much research and practice and being in the field, let me find a typical page. Style sheets. So, for example, here are some stories that are in there. And this is, just a newspaper thing. So if I select some text that I commonly use, you can see that it has a style already established to it. We already established that Century Schoolbook is a serif font that works pretty well for print. And we established that you don't want to go more than 11 points. I like to push it to 11 points. You probably could get away with 10 or 10.25 or some variation. In the olden days, there were even papers that did like in the 9s. But I think people's eyes are getting worse and their attention spans are getting worse, and you probably should push for the slightly bigger size. All right, and then over here we have something called leading, and it is 12.3 is the size that was determined. So what's leading? Leading is a is the space between lines. So if I were to change the leading, which you shouldn't do, once you establish your style, stick to your style, because people will notice that. A lot of times students want to, oh, this story doesn't fit on the page, I'll just make it tighter. And if you change the leading, it does stuff like that. It starts to look crammed. Here's what it looks like at actual size. See, this looks crammed as compared to the text above it. So Command Z, put it back to 12.3. Be consistent. The other things we went over on the page are, this is tracking over here, and that was called leading, spelled leading, leading, whatever way you want to pronounce it. Those are the main things that you would use in here. If your style sheet has italicized titles, now AP style uses quotes, and so you don't italicize. But if you do use italicized titles, you can, if your font doesn't have an italics version, you can use this to tilt it, maybe a few degrees so it looks italicized. I'm hitting Command Z. All right. So you could do that. But a common one that people use, and I mentioned it previously, is tracking. And tracking it allows like a little tightening up. The term in the business is if you have a word that's all by itself at the end of a paragraph, especially if it's a hyphenated word, like half of a word that has been hyphenated, it's called a widow. But it could be just a short word that's at the end. That's called a widow. Back in the day of layout design, it was common practice to eliminate widows. I don't think that it's that big of a deal anymore, but if you need to, you could eliminate the widow here by going to tracking and maybe making it a -10. Now you can see it's a little bit tighter. So, but it pulled up the whole story about one line. So if we were one line over, for example, I'm going to fix this line. If we were one line over, for example, that would save the day. You probably don't want to go much more than -20 on the tracking, because even this looks a little bit crammed. So if we went, like if you keep going with the tracking, it starts to get even tighter and tighter and starts to look kind of foolish. -4 would probably be the ultimate. The ultimate you should go. Depends. But otherwise readers start to notice. That's where it starts to get out of control. So you can see the choices made in leading and font size. All right, let's go back to our document. Select everything. And I'm going to do the 12.3 because that's what Campus News told me to do. 12.3. And I'm going to give the font the 11. And now you can see we've now gotten that. And the one other thing that is, you can see indents down here under paragraph. And if you don't have this toolbar, just go up to Window and get this toolbar going. The second line is indents. 0.125 is normal for a paragraph. Some students way overdo it. A lot of times students will turn in pieces that have, like they'll use tabs or they'll use extra spaces or something. Tell them not to do that because it should be done in the layout program. Don't do tabs or extra spaces. But 0.125. And I'm trying to see if there's anything else. Hyphenate is selected. So you do want to, all right, so the rule on hyphenation is you do hyphenate editorial, so anything written for the paper, You don't hyphenate headlines, um, subheads, pull quotes, or advertising copy doesn't get hyphenated. But any body copy does get hyphenated. This is body copy. So a hyphenation means, like, if it's a long word, here's one right here. American goes to the next line. That's hyphenation, in case you didn't know. All right, and one other thing I'm noticing is the area. Let's see. So this also has the 1.25, and I'm trying to see what Campus News did. 0.125 and 0.00625 for the next line. 0.00625. See what that does. All right, that second line right here. What did I just change? So I'm gonna hit Control Z to show you. Here's what it looked like before, and here's what it looks like after. So before and after. So what did I do? That 0063 number down there, or 625, is the area. It's like the space before each paragraph. So this little, otherwise you'd have like a lot of room in between the paragraphs. So let's tighten that up a little bit. And let's see if we do a little bit more. And I think there was another 0 in there. That was the problem. All right. So play around with it. You don't want too much space between the paragraphs. Play around with it. Once you're happy with your design, it gets easier because now you're going to use this design from now on. So select something. Select your body or something. And what you would do is go over to paragraph, right over here, and we're going to create a style sheet. So click the little plus symbol and call it body copy. All right, or whatever, body. Hit enter. Now it's a style, right? So let's say a student gives you some work and it's in, like, Tahoma font or something, and you're typing in, this is a story about something. All right, and it all began with a song. The song was, okay, so someone submits a story. Copy, paste, 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 paste. Again, let's turn this into right click, text frame options, and give it the same number of columns as the one above. Okay, so you can see this is just a default font. This is just the default Minion Pro. No italics. No indent. No tracking. Nothing. This is just what you get if you're just typing randomly on the page. Well, now if I go up to my style sheet, look what's in there. Body. Wow, it turned it into the exact same font as up here because we now made a style called body. So once you're 100% set with your body, go over here, click, and make it a style under paragraph. All right? So let's do other things on the page. Here's basic headline. Headline. Here is pull quote. Make that one. Pull quote. Here is subhead. Subhead. Sometimes you see it spelled H-E-D. Oh, there's already one with that name. Maybe we already did it. I think we made it last time or something. But let's call it. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That wasn't subhead. That's, yeah, subhead. All right, well, maybe we saved it last time. Subhead 2, just in case. Subhead 2. All right. This will be big headline. This will be, I don't know if you need this, but you know, and it'll probably be different for, you're gonna have a different size probably for your page numbers, but you could save this if you wanted. Byline, you might wanna save. Make sure you select the part that you want though. So if you want the byline, now byline's usually just your body copy, bold, no italics, but if you wanted to create one for byline, you could. And then other types you could have are like classified ads. You could have just legal ads if you run those, or you know, just generic copy. All right, so now we have all of this in a style book. So if we go here, look at all these styles we have now that we created. And that was quick, right? So we did all that work before, but now we have them memorialized in our style book. All right. So let's say we created, for example, a let's say you're doing pull quotes. All right. And you pull a quote out of here. And pull a quote, copy, paste it in here, and go to your subhead. Oh no, it wasn't subhead, it was pull quote. And normally, all right, here's something. Normally with pull quotes, you do a single quote. So headlines and headlines and pull quotes and stuff are a single quote. All right, and you see the little widow here, a song. So you could maybe break it so that it's not widowed. You know, you think of like if you ever took a poetry class, and where would you break the lines? Where would you break the lines? So, and you don't want hyphenation like I mentioned. All right, so we feel like, hey, we created a pull quote. It remembered the same exact font we have up here because we made it a style. And then you drag it over, and it's going to have some problems. It falls behind the page. You're going to have to go to text wrap and add a text wrap, and then maybe a little bit of a runaround. And if you click this box, the runaround's around the whole thing. 0.0625 isn't bad. 0.125 is a little more. It's up to you. If you feel like the runaround on the bottom is a little too much, you can unselect this box and just change the bottom one. Whoops, too much. So it pulls a little closer. If you feel like the one at the top could be a little more, you could do something like that. Or select this box and it makes them all the same. All right, and then you can see, because we gave it a runaround, you can see that the text will flow around it. All right, so that's style books, keeping your styles, a lot of other things. font choices. But once you feel 100% comfortable and you do your research, do your research, see what other newspapers are doing. If you go with different fonts, find newspapers that use that font, see what they're doing. Do you like the way they look? Are they readable? And your numbers over here might be different than my numbers. So it's up to you. But once you have it, you can make it permanent by going and creating a style. And remember, it's this little plus sign down here to create a style. Now you'll have this for all your pages. All right, next time we'll work on creating more pages and jumping to those pages. Have a good day.